Aloha, my name is Denise Yamaguchi. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation. Thank you for joining us for our 6th episode of Eat, Think, Drink, Scaling Up Small Farm to Big Farm. As some of you know or may not know, the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation launched Eat, Think, Drink in November of 2016 in an effort to spark meaningful conversation about important agricultural and food issues facing our community, and also to build and engage a larger network of conscious consumers. Our hope this evening is to help community members like you learn more about these important issues. Before we start, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Hawaiian Airlines, our supporting sponsors, Alexander and Baldwin, ʻAlohilani Resort Waikiki, our host this evening, Hawaii Crop Improvement Association, Honolulu Magazine and Honolulu Family, Kamehameha Schools, Lend-Lease, the State of Hawaii, and the Ulupono Initiative. This evening, you will have the opportunity to learn and hear from 4 remarkable thought leaders in the field of agriculture. Each has approached scaling up farms with different perspectives and different strategies. Our keynote speaker is Eric Pond, and he's farmed in the Pacific Northwest for over 25 years. He currently works on behalf of clients to source, develop, and operate over 6,500 acres in berries and hazelnuts. Currently, Eric is focused on developing organic hazelnut production methods and is working to help growers obtain access to land. Donna Shapiro moved to Hawaii to work primarily as a rural development consultant, and in 2015, she co-founded Mala Kala'ulu, a 4-acre cooperative farm restoring traditional ulu that now boasts 50 members with almost 100,000 pounds of ulu produced and processed for distribution to local food service operations. She is also a past winner of the Kamehameha School's Mahiai Matchup Contest for her work with ulu. Fred Lau is the owner of Mari's Garden, a hydroponic and aquaponic farm located on 18 acres in Mililani, Oahu. In 2010, Fred converted an acre of his nursery business into a produce farm. That operation has grown to 2 acres of greenhouse production and an acre of conventional farming that produces over 6 tons of lettuce, along with cucumbers, tomatoes, and other edible crops each month. Janelle Yamamoto is the director of the Go Farm Hawaii program. She has consulted with farmers throughout the state and teaches the Go Farm Hawaii business classes. Kamuela Ines, our moderator, is Ma'o Farm's Social Enterprise Director. Born and raised in Waianae, Kamuela comes from a family of culture practitioners and farmers committed to sustainable agriculture. He is also a vocal advocate for innovative educational approaches that serve all learners. Before I introduce Eric, we have a special presentation that goes along with our Scaling Up theme. Janelle from Go Farm will make a special presentation and announce this year's Mahiai Matchup Agricultural Business Plan winner.
For the past 6 years, Go Farm Hawaii has been training and incubating new farmers in Hawaii. For many of our participants, finding suitable land to continue to scale their business has been quite challenging. So when Kamehameha Schools presented the opportunity to partner on this year's Mahiai Scale Up Business Plan Contest, we were truly grateful. The contest gave many of our graduates the opportunity to build a solid business plan and present it to a panel of 9 judges. Our judges scored applicants based on their prior performance in the program and their business plan's likelihood of success, its financial sustainability, and its impact on agriculture and the food system in Hawaii. The winner of this year's contest receives an agricultural license from Kamehameha Schools with 3 years of waived rent and startup seed money from the Ulupono Initiative. So thank you very much. The winner, after hearing from our 7 finalists, the judges selected this year's winner. Please join me in congratulating Brian and Natalie Mesa of De La Mesa Farms. Congratulations to Brian and Natalie. As this year's Mahiai Scale Up Agricultural Business Plan winner, Brian and Natalie will receive a $10,000 prize from Ulupono Initiative. We have Kyle Data, General Partner of Ulupono, to present the $10,000 prize. Brian, would you like to say anything? Brian, you want to say a few words?
Aloha, everyone. I just want to thank our sponsors tonight, Kamehameha Schools and Ulupono. And then can we get a big round of applause for all the Go Farm staff, like Jay, Nora, Janelle, and Pomai over here. Thank you, guys.
Congratulations, Brian. I'm now pleased to introduce Eric Pond, co-owner of Greenleaf Farm Management.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here. There's not many of these conversations going on around the country about farm and food and how it's connected and land access issues. And so I'm excited to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you as well. So with that, well, we'll see. I've had the opportunity to work here in Hawaii on a part-time basis for the last 4 years on a project that we're really excited to be launching this next spring. So it's been really fun to be able to be part of that and to meet a lot of you. I see many faces in the crowd that have been meeting over the last few years, and we're excited to go forward here. So, okay, I was asked to speak about scaling up, and I thought, wow, okay. That's a challenge. Hawaii agriculture, from what I've learned, is several acres to some larger farms. But and I was also unsure about how the subject of scaling up would be received by all of you. So we'll hopefully we'll have a good conversation here. So over my career, I've managed actually several different sizes of farms. We did a stint teaching small-scale farming at a private high school where we had a half-acre garden, and we scaled that up to about 12 acres of organic vegetables that we were serving Portland with, as well as the school cafeteria. So to give you an idea, we had a CSA, we had the school cafeteria, we had several restaurants in Portland that we worked with, and we also helped start the our produce into the local regional retail stores too. So we have both sides of agriculture, I guess. This is a blueberry farm and a harvester. This is a 300-acre certified organic farm that we were managing at the time. So on the subject of scaling up, too far. I got to forget that I'm looking at two different screens here. Is bigger really better? Not always. Could you do more with less? I don't think that bigger is always the answer, but we certainly can always do more. And the conversation usually about why your customers need more produce from you is that they are being driven to scale. So we'll get into more of that. I want to talk a little about what are your goals, asking your own questions about that. Again, market. Is there demand for more product? Management. Are your management and procedures ready for expansion? It's a whole thought process change when you go to 5 acres to 100 acres to 200 acres to 1,000. Capital. Are you financially positioned? And then I've got some examples to talk about, and then I'll end with some thoughts on Hawaii. Scaling up, is bigger really better? What are your skills? These are questions that I look at, ask, and try to figure out when I go to speak to farm managers who may be managing farms that we're setting up for the client that I work for on the mainland. So I'm looking at their skills. What are their skills and weaknesses? Do they have other team members that fulfill the needs that they have in order to make a kind of a holistic management plan? Just for reference, on small-scale farming at which is being done very impactful by these two farmers, Jean Martin Fortier and Curtis Stone. You can see them on YouTube all the time. They even have classes. I think that would be really relevant for some of the folks here, especially at a small scale in the 2 to 5 acre scale range. Really important to look at what they're doing already. There's so many people that have great plans, and you just have to copy them. So it's not a lot of extra footwork or research on your part. I always think about, can you do more from the same footprint? What about seasonality? Can you add crops that extend your season so you're talking to your customers 12 months out of the year? Customers really forget you really quickly. I found that out in restaurant and CSA work. Specifically, if they didn't see me, in fact, it was really fascinating. We started one farmer's market, and that particular market, I started it, I went to it, and when we sent other people that were from the same farm, same name, same produce, the sales were always down. So be careful who you send to your first market. But yeah, you may not be the one that you want there all the time. Goals. So I always ask people, what are your goals? Financially, how many people are you trying to take care of? Is your goal to just subsist? Is it homestead style farming? Is it large scale? Are you trying to build a team? What are the goals that you want to achieve financially? Lifestyle that gets to that lifestyle, and then are you thinking about the next generation? So is the farm to preserve land so that it goes to the next generation? Incorporate that next generation now, because and I realized my slides are off. Sorry, you guys can tell me that if something. Okay, sorry. Geez, I'm talking away about this and it's not there. I'm sorry. Okay, the problems with technology and looking at two different screens. Okay, there you go. This is what I was talking about. You're probably all looking at me confused about who I was talking about here. This is actually our garden. Yeah, I'm a little crazy. My wife and kids are always telling me I need to slow it down a little bit, but I set up our garden, even though it's a half acre, with 100-foot rows, so it's all the same length, and I made a huge mistake this last spring and double ordered potato seeds, so we ended up growing 3,000 pounds of potatoes, so our friends are all really happy. Okay, we'll try to go through, let's get one at a time. Jeez, that's really quick. Okay. It does not want to go backwards. There we go. Okay. I believe that your scaling up or the demand for more product from what you're doing or you're growing should be driven by the market. Please don't make the mistake of so many of us farmers. We do such a great job growing things, and then we go harvest them, and then we worry about where to sell them. And so really think about that ahead of time. Try to know your market, understand what, I was just on the phone with somebody this week because we were looking at organic blackberry production. I'd like to grow 500,000 pounds of it because that's 50 acres. That's 500,000 pounds of blackberries. That seems easy. Called me back and he says 50,000 pounds will overrun my current demand for organic blackberries. Okay, that's great. That's only 5 acres. So we really need to rethink what we're doing. Do you have the necessary food safety practices in place? Huge problem for agriculture, even small scale now. I believe that you may have, pretty soon here with FSMA, you have to have a license or a certification to give away zucchinis at church. So, it's a huge issue. And I think there's a lot of ways that we could tackle that. It does not need to be on your own. I mean, I think about collaborative workspace and collaborative, having that all done because it's a huge expense and a huge burden on a small farm. Can you meet the volumes? Who could you collaborate? So you don't always I don't feel like you personally have to always grow all of it. It's really nice to collaborate with other farmers and work together on meeting the volumes that the retailers want. Retailers are trying to make less calls and have less producer relationships almost every month. It's so interesting. We're talking to people at a large scale because of all the berries and other hazelnuts we're producing, and they want to make one phone call. So can you aggregate? Can you work together to grow on, say, a joint piece of ground more than you could produce on your own? one of the really key things to scaling up has become management and procedures. If your team is calling you to make all the decisions, I don't believe you're ready to scale up. Your team really has to be educated, given the space to do things in their own way. If it's to produce 1,000 pounds of potatoes, that's great, but really working with your team to build their skills to be able to do that, because you can't helicopter and micromanage when you try to scale up. So just really key. And it's also a decision that you should make personally. Maybe you don't want employees. Maybe you don't want collaborative farming. Maybe you like to do your own thing. Then think about scale from a different aspect. It doesn't mean you should hire everybody. You should bring all your friends in or your family. You'll drive them nuts. But anyway, really understand yourself before, as you're thinking about this issue on scaling. A lot of times I see people growing too many things, so the focus is too broad, so they don't do any of those things very well, and they're not always meeting their customer needs. So can you maintain quality while you scale? And are you financially positioned to scale up? Really key to understand your numbers, to know the margins. Just because Whole Foods wants 20,000 pounds of cucumbers doesn't mean they're going to pay you the same price. It also may not mean that the margins are there because of the infrastructure you need to put in place to be able to fulfill that order. So I really recommend a business plan and a budget, and we'll get into that more later. And then human capital, do not forget that your employees or even yourself are hugely critical to the success of your operation. So this is an example of the lack of ability to scale. What you're looking at is fresh pickers, about 200 people trying to fresh pick blueberries on a farm, and the contract labor management company, we talk to them, we have all these meetings, month after month. The harvest is coming, the season is coming. You need several layers of management. You need to educate your people. You need to have a system. And of course, they show up day one with this. And people are everywhere. There's no lines. How do we know everybody washed their hands before they picked the field? So what we did in this case is we ended up taking them all out of the field. Say, hey, you got to start over. So just one example of the lack of ability to scale in this case. And we ended up trying to work with this farm contract labor provider for several years, and it just ended up continuing to be a mess. Another situation here, when you're scaling, a lot of times the equipment is not designed. It's not like you're getting this stuff off the shelf at Home Depot to go out and farm with. So in this case, how do we scale up to plant 1,000 acres of blueberries? There's 1,320 plants per acre. They're 3 feet by 11 feet, so the row width is 11. They're 3 feet down the row. And I thought, well, my first thing was, well, let's mechanize this system. So we came up with this great planter. It did a pretty good job until you had undulation in the field. So when this happened, you'd have plants that were a little too high and plants that were a little too deep. And so for $15,000, we were planting really, really quickly. But don't forget, in your drive to incorporate tech and machinery, that don't forget the broader picture here. And the broader picture was, we're planting a crop that's lasting 75 years. It's so insignificant, the hand labor to do it right in year one, than that investment that's going to last 75 years. The second picture is a falcon that we use for bird control. One of the key things that we were worried about doing was, how do we keep the birds out of 300 acres of blueberries? So that's like putting up a great big sign that says, eat here. And starlings, which are not native to anywhere that I can tell, except for Europe, I guess, can decimate a blueberry field. It's not like they eat one berry and go home. They just peck every berry going down the row and ruin, like all of them. So falcons, and it turned out that the falcon, not only did it not disrupt native birds that were in the area, it controlled the starlings, I mean, we had 0% damage as long as the falconer was on it. And he would work 6 days a week. And we could cut this one bird. So he had 4 birds. He puts up one at a time. They'll cover 300 acres at a time. And they call it this cone of death. That bird's just up there at 2,000 feet going over. And it's like, that's kind of crazy, but you can train starlings. So that's what allowed us to do this. So, yeah. And they actually expanded, and they were able to cover 600 acres on an additional farm that we did later on. So it's a huge help. Cost per acre is high. It's about $65,000 a year if you only had 10 acres, but on 300 acres with a crop that's worth, in the neighborhood of $15 million, it was very low cost compared to that. So again, you're weighing all those costs. So here is an example of management costs on 2,000 acres versus 3,000 acres. So this was a development we did. It's now, all the blueberries are now certified organic. So it has 1,200 acres of certified organic blueberries, 1,200 acres of hazelnuts. It had 400 acres of hops on it. If you compare the costs of managing the same farm, we're going to have the same management team to manage 2,000 acres as we are to manage 3,000 acres. The per acre labor costs, you can see, are significant. So if you are looking at all of your costs per acre, just the management teams, these are overhead that you need to do this job that really isn't, it's kind of like what I figure hard overhead costs. They're not, it's not like if the crop is down this year, I can get away with less labor. You still have this management labor. So just an example of scale here. In addition, these Star Trek looking machines, because we had 1,200 acres of blueberries on one farm, we needed a way to cover more acres faster. So what you're seeing is 2 machines here. They're track machines. They're used for spraying. So remember, this is a certified organic farm. Just because you're organic does not mean you aren't applying inputs and you're not trying to protect against bugs and diseases. So we do apply USDA approved products to our organic farms. These machines, once you take the sprayer off, you can then mow 2 rows at a time. So you see 2 operators here. That job normally would be done by 4 people. It's now done by 2. So now we can educate these 2 team members. We can provide higher wages for them because we have less labor in total. And they're actually doing a really sophisticated job. The inside of this machine is all run, a lot of it's run on GPS. And you plug in the spray rate, and the sprayer takes off and sprays for you. So highly critical to the ability to farm 1,200 acres of organic blueberries. But that machine costs $300,000. It covers 5 rows at a time spraying and 2 rows mowing, but that cost over, again, 3,000 acres or 1,200 acres of blueberries is very low compared to what you would have on, say, a 20-acre farm. Other equipment efficiencies we were able to come up with, so we came up with a banner eye system so it would see the tree and just apply the product to the tree, and that saved us over $68,000 a year. So again, scale has some effect on the ability to lower your cost per acre. Again, we were trying to figure out how to mow. We ended up with 2,500 acres of organic blueberries, and we used fabric here right underneath the berry, but the grass grows in between. So we were looking at that. Our team of mechanics said, hey, what can we do? And these are, it's kind of hilarious. These are 2 Home Depot 21-inch mower decks with the engines removed, hydraulic motors replaced, and a modification, of course, on the side. So this was a $180 push mower from Home Depot, and then they made it to float on the front of this so it'll mow the edges. We called it a bat wing mower because it mowed the edges of the fabric. And then the center deck, you can see right here, mowed the center, so 1 pass. And these guys don't stop mowing. In Oregon, the grass grows from, well, it grows all winter, but it grows throughout the spring until we hit about June, July, and then it dries up. The secret is that Oregon dries up and has 4 months with no rain. So Okay, so I recently had the opportunity to work on scaling up organic cranberry production and just share some recent work that we were doing there. So there wasn't a lot of organic cranberry production, so this was all new. So you're taking, the way we approach this is we try to take the best and most efficient conventional systems. We also looked at foreign countries, so Canada, Quebec is a big area. And then we said, okay, how can we do that organically? How can we change that? So again, we looked at management teams, what were their skills, could they scale up? We looked at harvesters because that was a really slow part of the process. So what you see in this picture is a harvester. Normally, the regular size harvesters are only about 5 feet wide. This thing is, I think, close to 15 feet wide. It can harvest this 3-acre bog in 20 minutes, which would normally take 4 hours with a small harvester. Yields, we were also looking at varieties. Some of the old varieties only produced 150 to 200 barrels to the acre. We're looking at new varieties that would produce 400. So again, that's that concept of, can I produce more on the same acreage? I have to manage the same acreage, but producing more just reduced your cost per pound of cranberries in half. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? It's hugely key to the financial success of an operation. Here is a look at the management structure. So on the top, we were asking ourselves, what's an economic unit? So we know we have to have a certain amount of management, and it's my feeling that in organic farming, it takes three times the management focus than it does than conventional. So we asked ourselves, if we need this management team, what then is the economic unit? And if you see to the far right, a 200-acre farm, the total cost per acre to manage that is $1,600. We've added 2 positions to manage 200 acres versus the 80-acre management team. And if you can look, you look right here, $2,500 an acre to manage 80 acres, $1,600 to manage 200 acres. So another example of what we see is the economic unit. Of course, you would add more people above this. So for every 200 acres, this is the size of team that we would be adding. So we're looking at this in 200-acre sort of investment chunks. We're buying the first 80 acres here in December, and then we're quickly in the next 6 months working on that additional acreage to get us to 200 acres. So again, that allows us to put wide, large-scale harvesters in place that cuts our harvest time by, I don't even remember that, but it's from 4 hours to 20 minutes. So those are the kind of things that we're thinking about as we look at scaling. And then finally, some thoughts on just things I've seen or things I'm thinking about in regards to Hawaii. So very high labor costs. You're competing against, that's kind of a US-wide challenge, but probably more so here. So also being able to educate and train workers to be efficient at those jobs. So it's not, it's funny, we were working with a nursery years ago, and they were able to source people out of Mexico that had basket weaving skills because they were making topiary and, basically animals out of arborvitae. I don't know if you've seen any of that here, but they were making animals, they were making wreaths and things like that out of arborvitae and other plants. And so it was really fascinating to me to see that people from this area of Mexico had specific skills in basket weaving, and those men and women were like 5 times as fast as regular crew in doing this job in this nursery. So ag is not always an intuitive thing when you're out there. How do you efficiently and quickly harvest carrots? Or 2-minute warning, great. Okay, I'll move on. Quality. One of the things I see happening on the mainland is small farms are working with several, 3 to 5 farms in the area and training staff that can move between those farms, but then you're keeping those workers fully employed longer in the season, and that's what people want. I think we all want to be gainfully employed. Marketing, ready-to-eat items, minimal processing, huge. I don't know if you've noticed, but in all the retail stores, one of the fastest growing segments of the store is those chopped fruits and chopped vegetables, just minimally processed. But hey, why not buy the salad pre-made for me, dump it on my plate when I get home because I have a busy schedule, rather than having to make it all myself. So huge area, I think, that is a huge opportunity for small farms when they can work in a collaborative effort and have the food safety in place to do that. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, so sorry, bear with me. Food service, again, I think minimally processed. Can you, again, this idea of modular equipment, allowing for the different uses throughout the season when you're looking at pack shed and the ability to provide that ready-to-eat item. Agritourism, you guys do a great job of that already. Seasonal diversification, I think that's something that's really becoming interesting. And one of the big things I really feel is something that we need to really work on is repurposing waste streams, composting, bringing it back to the soil, putting it back in, using that. You guys are worse than we are. We're a big island on the mainland, and you're a small island. So it's probably a much smaller circle when it comes to repurposing those waste streams, but hugely critical in our kind of like long-term goal on inputs for farm. And support. It's events like these that really, to me, keep the creativity and energy going. You all need that, and you really need a support system. So with that, I'll close, and thank you again.
Hello, my name is Kamola Inos. I'll be your moderator. Hello for everyone coming out tonight. And I was asked by the crew here to help moderate this panel. We have a really wonderful panel for you tonight. I'm just going to go read off everyone's names. Well, I know their names, but what they do. Just so that I'm capturing the eloquence of what was written for them. So. Right next to me, we have Janelle Yamamoto. She is the director of Go Farm Hawaii program. She has consulted with farmers throughout the state and teaches the Go Farm Hawaii business classes. Next to her is Fred Lau. He is the owner of Mari's Gardens, a hydroponic and aquaponic farm located on 18 acres in Mililani, Oahu. In 2010, Fred converted, as was shared earlier, to a nursery business. We have Dana Shapiro, who is with Kalu'ulu, 4-acre cooperative, and then finally Eric's here. So we, all of them are from different walks of life, and as Eric was sharing, there's a lot of really kind of like some very general ideas of what's happening on the continent, but I think these farmers here are doing something unique to Hawaii. And when we think about scaling, for me, it's really important to know that if you live in Hawaii, you're Hawaiian, you actually, the ancestors here had scaled agriculture. That was pretty awesome for hundreds of years. So there is a precedent. But now how do we recreate that in contemporary spaces? So I wanted to just ask some questions of them quickly to kind of get this going. First, I want to ask Janelle, being that you grow farmers, what are some of the things that you build into your business to help create the next generation of farmers ready to scale up?
So the Go Farm Hawaii program is a University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources program. We basically offer two primary services. The first is business consulting. So we consult with farmers throughout the state. We help them with things like business planning, financial analysis, how much does it cost to grow this head of lettuce, marketing, value-added production, anything on the business end of their operation. But what we found was a lot of people wanted to become farmers, but they didn't know how to farm. So what we did was start a beginning farmer training program, and we have 5 locations across 4 islands. But what it is a very intensive training program where it's hands-on learning for about a year. You would come to class one evening and hands-on application on the weekend. And you would also get exposed to a lot of business education. You would have to write a business plan by the end of the course. After that, the graduates have an opportunity to incubate and start their farms with us, and they can stay with us for up to 3 years. And during that time, they need to generate a specific amount of revenues. They have to update their business plans regularly, and they build a network and support system that can really help them as they launch their career. So there's a lot of emphasis on the business end of things. During the training portion, they need to generate $2,000 worth of revenue. And during the incubation portion, the dollar threshold that they need to meet continually increases. The goal is to produce more commercial scale farmers for the state. The method to provide is to provide technical training and a lot of exposure and opportunities. So exposure to other farmers, to other revenue streams, all of the things that they can use so that they can make good business decisions and set the goals for themselves as they grow.
Awesome, mahalo. Fred Lau is very interesting in that he is an older farm that actually transitioned to a new way of farming, developing a new arm. And now you're trying to scale that. So with a farm that really focuses on hydroponics and aquaponics and growing in those types of unique contexts, what are some of the things that you think have to be your priorities in scaling that model up?
So we're kind of interesting because I'm not a farmer. I'm actually a landscape contractor. And my son wanted to get into farming when he graduated in 2010. So I went along with this crazy idea, and our first goal was to build a scalable model for agriculture, because I look at the numbers. We're growing on the smallest possible footprint, but producing more product than conventional farms would normally do, and using the least amount of inputs possible to impact the environment as little as possible. And we wanted a system, most importantly, that was economically viable for me, the financier, right? And so we tried several things. We tried an aeroponic system, and we quickly realized that was crazy. That was not economically viable. And then we tried aquaponics and hydroponic systems, and both of them have proven to be able to be scalable, and there is a return of investment that is not too bad. Both systems are very productive, and both systems are extremely sustainable. Our challenge in scaling up these systems, though, is that the initial upfront capital costs are tremendous compared to a lot of other farming. And probably the most detrimental thing is that we don't have access to a good labor force here in Hawaii. That is going to slow us down in any of our expansion goals and capabilities. We've been traveling around looking at other farms on the mainland and in Japan, and we just came back from New Zealand. And farms all have the same problem with labor. It just doesn't exist anymore. So more and more they're looking for automation, looking toward automation. And we'll do some of that next year, some small automation, kind of like what Eric was talking about, but on a much smaller scale. Maybe for our seeding and our spraying. But to automate our planting and harvesting in our greenhouse is not going to be possible right now at our scale because of the cost.
Awesome. Donna, I had a good, she told me how to remember her name. It rhymes with mana. One of the things that's interesting about your program is that you're looking at aggregating and doing a collective approach to increasing ulu production. And that requires a lot of different partners. So what is your approach to scaling, given that unique model and many moving parts that have to happen?
Well, we started our ag producer co-op, the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, a little over 10 years ago, when the state ulu industry was really not in existence yet. And With ulu, it's a tree crop, so it's 5 years to harvest. And there really were only small scale or startup farms growing this crop. So in order to create any scale, we had to band together. That was the impetus for starting it, was recognizing that there were a number of farmers starting out with this crop, and the only way that we were going to build viable businesses for ourselves was to work together. So that was the driving force.
Eric, we're going to have you bat last. You're standing between us and having dinner. And I think you had a really good chance. But I want to just give you the closing comments. But I just want to circle back up. We had just made some small pivots given the time constraints. I'll get you a beer after. So part of what I want to come back to you and to see if, Janelle, like what does a healthy system look like in your mind to grow a really robust small farming community? And what are some things you can ask of others and you try to ask of your farmers to once they become established to create for their community?
Well, I think a healthy food system is one that has a lot of strong components of the system within, and collaboration between all of those components are important. We need solid food producers, but we also need efficient ways to access markets. We need consumers who are going to support purchasing local. We need ways to repurpose our food waste. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in that healthy food system. But farmers really are the backbone of a strong food system. And for the small farmer, a healthy food system is one in which they are profitable. They are able to pay themselves and others. If farmers can't be profitable, other people aren't going to want to become farmers, and the ones who are out there are not going to be able to stay in business. So a lot of my recommendation mirrors what Eric was talking about. Develop a plan and make sure you think through the financial part of that plan. We have a lot of people who come to us with a business idea, and they haven't even worked out the back of the napkin part of that plan, which is very critical. There's a lot of passion in farming, and that's amazing, even if you're a nonprofit. Unless you can bring in the revenues, you can't do all the great, wonderful things that you want to do. So you need to think about the money side of things. Look at ways to improve efficiencies and reduce costs. Build that network of support that can help you. Understand your community, because operating in, even for our program, operating on one island is so different than another. So you really, truly need to understand and be a part of your community. And remember that you're operating a business. There's a lot that goes into a successful business operation. So you need to think beyond production. Sales, marketing, cash flow, network, all of those people issues are all important and need to be addressed.
Awesome. So Fred, farmers have a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and then a lot of weeding and washing in between in the gray area. But like for you and your work, what are some of the highs that you're kind of looking for, and what are some of the lows that you're trying to look out for, forecasting, scaling, and you're getting the bigger some of the challenges and opportunities in front of you?
Well, you know, we live on one of the most isolated, inhabited islands in the world. And because of that, we pay the price for living here in paradise. Our electricity is double that of anywhere in the nation. Our shipping costs are incredible. I meet farmers, I meet aquaculturalists on the mainland, and I tell them what I pay for a pound of feed, and they roll their eyes, shake their heads, and tell me, how the heck are you doing this? You know, it's impossible. But we're doing it. Our organic fertilizers and the pesticides are very expensive, but much more expensive than commercial chemicals. The pest pressures in Hawaii are never ending. We don't have that winter season that the temperate climates have to control those insects, to help control those insects. And unlike the mainland greenhouse growers, we can't bring beneficial insects to Hawaii. And that's something that I don't know if we'll ever be able to do that, but it's critical for us. most recently, maintaining our food safety certifications and our organic certifications have become increasingly burdensome, extremely expensive. We have to dedicate one person for probably 3 months of the year just putting together all the records for food safety and organic too. But I think the greatest reward is knowing that what we're putting on our crop is safe. We're creating a product that is food safe, that is fresh, and it's healthy, and it's local, and we're keeping that money flowing in the state. And I think that's the greatest reward.
Ew. Dana, I want to just kind of shift you. Given that you are doing that aggregation and co-op around Ulu, and it seems to be really a powerful way to get, as Eric was mentioning earlier, leverage other farmers and kind of grow collectively. Do you think there are other crops out there that, in your mind, could also benefit from that approach to collectivizing?
Absolutely. I think in Hawaii, 95% of our farms are small and diversified. So there's tons of opportunities to bring farmers together to leverage collective action in order to grow and provide more food for Hawaii, improve our food security, sustainability, and their own economic viability. I think the sort of keys to look for is where there is already a concentration of farmers growing the same crops. If you can find even one or two that have higher volumes that can provide the backbone for the initial scale you need to launch commercial products. And then once that gets successful, the other farmers can begin to increase their production gradually. The other really important piece, of course, is organization among the farmers so that they can be aligned with each other and that they have the, organizational capacity to begin leveraging resources to develop the infrastructure they need, as well as, the food safety elements. So for us, the cooperative model has been a really powerful vehicle to do that. It also supports what Janelle was talking about with regard to farmers really being the backbone of our food system. So in the cooperative model, whatever revenues are generated and the profits that remain afterwards get redistributed back to the farmers as patronage at the end of the year or quarter. And so it just goes right back into being reinvested in their business and in the food system. So I think anywhere that can be cultivated, there's potential for other crops as well.
Awesome. Well, mahalo, you guys. Eric, do you want to bring us home? I think there are some things that you saw, but I also, what I really admire about you is that you've actually spent some time in Hawaii and you have some ways to kind of bridge some national conversation with local ones. And if there's any just one big thing that you'd really put out to everyone that provides a unique opportunity for people of this place to really hammer in on, is there something that is out there, and just to put you on the spot?
Thanks.
I'll get you a beer.
I stand between you and the food and the drinks, so yeah, okay. One of the things that I just is really rewarding to work here specifically is the heart that I find in all of the small farmers and medium-sized farmers I've met here. There's just such a passion for the land. I think on an island you see so much faster your impact, good or bad, and you have some real issues that you're all facing now with good and bad. So the heart that I see here, just the passion for what you're doing, it's really great. I think that it goes back to kind of the business principles. For me, the keys to success have always been those who are willing to grow and change with the community, with the environment, with the retail sections. Farming is not a stagnant job. It's not 9 to 5, and it's a learning experience from birth to death. And those who are truly successful has been those who focused on continuing to learn and adapt. So it's a really adaptive environment. And so the co-ops, those are things like the co-ops, things like Go Farm. Those experiences are that adaptation to an old way of there wasn't those activities before. So I just highly recommend that support those. And retailers need to be part of the conversation. I feel really strongly that retailers, restaurants, consumers need to be part of this conversation, because as farmers, we like to grow certain crops, and it may not be what everybody wants to eat. So.
Well, mahalo. I want to mahalo our speakers tonight. We're going to make sure that they have time to have at least one beer with you guys. We're going to do question and answer, but we figure we do question and beers. That sounds a lot more appropriate. But we wanted to mahalo everyone who's on the panel for taking, especially Eric for flying in and sharing, for Dana, for Fred, and for Janice. Sorry, Janelle. What asked me? Janelle, especially to come out and to share with you guys. And also, we really want to thank, we talk in the spirit of our consumers, our chefs upstairs will be cooking for us. We want to give a big shout out to Chris G from La Tour Cafe, Elmer Guzman from Pokestop, David Lucella from ʻAlohilani Restaurant, Tommy Sao from Morimoto Asia, and Momo-san in Waikiki, and Jason Schoonover from 12th, don't spit in my food, 12th Ave Grill for cooking everything tonight, and they'll be up there. We also want to give a big shout out to the sponsors tonight, Fiji Water, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, and Tossware. And the last thing I'll just put out as a thought, people who farm in this manner, who farm sustainably, are going to be the new lawyers. We're going to be the most important people in society. Once we come around that corner, the rest of the world realizes that, yeah, we have to put it out there, because what we're caring for is not just food, but land and people. Remediating soil, remediating people, bringing food back to plates is a technical, it's a practical, and it's a spiritual act. So I want to thank all of you for doing that, and for the Hawaii Ag Foundation for holding space for this conversation. So mahalo everybody for coming. Upstairs and eat. They're going to be holding the elevator for you guys, so there's going to be a mad rush to get to food, but hello everybody.